So this is from a video from a TV show called Yes Minister, played in the late 80s. So basically the only context you want to know is the guy who's about to speak. And I want to just give this context because we're going to talk a lot about how context is important. So basically all you need to know is the guy who's giving the speech is about to announce that he's running for Prime Minister.
European. I believe in the European ideal. Never again shall we repeat the bloodshed of the two world wars. Europe is here to stay. But this does not mean that we have to bow the knee to every directive from every little bureaucratic Bonaparte in Brussels. We are a sovereign nation still. We are British and proud. We have made enough concessions to the European Commissar for Agriculture. And when I say Commissar, I use the word advisedly. We've swallowed the limelight, we've swallowed the buttermilk, beating up British lorry drivers carrying good British land to the French public. We have bowed, scraped, doffed our caps, tugged our forelocks, and turned the other cheek, but I say enough is enough. The Europeans have gone too far. They are now threatening the British sausage. They won't stand enough. I wish they mean they'll force the British people to eat salami and garlic and greasy food. British way of life. Do you want to eat salami baked with the other bacon? I do. And I will. They turned our pints into litres and our yards into meters. We gave them tanner, threatened it for 2 bob piece and a half crown, but they cannot and will not destroy the British sausage. Hold my line here. In the word.
Okay, so that sort of conveys the general point we wanted to get across. So what is the symbolic? So that video talks about how something as irrelevant as a sausage can become a clarion call for nationalism and for pride, right? So he uses the sausage and he says they've converted our pints into liters and our yards into meters. So these like very mundane examples are now suddenly representative of British nationalism, and that is his main plank later on when he stands for Prime Minister. So basically what we're talking about is how governments today use symbols to rather than anything really effective to sort of portray what they want to talk about. And we're going to talk about how this has become what governments are about rather than actually governing. It's about looking like you're governing. So use symbolism in government and trying to show what they've been doing is something that's been very that's part and parcel of government in general. So when Alexander the Great was invading Persia, he threw a spear out of his ship, and when it landed on the beach, he said that Asia was his by spear with one right. It's a symbol, right? Because forget about that, because he's not actually stepped on land yet. He's not met the Persian army yet, but that is a symbol that he's showing to his soldiers that this is our land now. So these are symbols. So using this to sort of spur people on is something that's been very common. Mahatma Gandhi was again not just a master symbol. He epitomized in a lot of ways what we wanted to talk about. The clothes he wore and his troubles were indicative. They were symbols of the kind of life he wanted people to lead. The fist of salt that he held up at Dandi was a symbol against British oppression and British imperialism. So it was a tremendous call to action, basically. The Lenin jacket again is whenever you see the moment you see someone wearing a Lenin jacket, you think, communist one that. So again, it's a symbol, right? That is what you want to show. That is indicative of a number of other things that you've come to associate with that one particular object. So rather than saying everything else, rather than actually showing that we stand for communism or we stand for the principles of Marx and Lenin, etc., you wear a Lenin jacket because then suddenly it implies what you're for. So marketing, basically, showing what we are about, showing what we want to do, it has now evolved from being one of the things that the governments do in order to being the primary thing. There is nothing that the government really does anymore. It's just showing that it's doing a lot of things. So Look at Winston Churchill, for example, again. Now, Winston Churchill is not a pretty man. He looks fairly, he's got a pug face, he's always wearing that ridiculous border hat, always chanting a cigar. Because that's Britain during the World War. They weren't winning pretty, it wasn't graceful, but they were doing it. So, then we can talk about a little bit more about symbolism in American politics, because this is really where it all began. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "I have a dream." So this was again his symbol, that dream, the American dream. That was his symbol, his call to action for a peaceful America, a racism-free America. Ronald Reagan was an actor. So when I was looking for this image, the first 20 image results that I got were of him in a suit standing in front of an American flag. Because again, that is the symbol he wants to show, that he is the patriotic president. When you look at it, so Bill Clinton is, I think, perhaps one of the greatest, people who use this. He was the working man's president. So to the point that Barack Obama is generally called the second black president, because this man was the first black president of the United States. Because he had that southern accent, which was suddenly indicative of a little bit of a farmer. He would be seen outside McDonald's. He would come on TV and he played jazz on the saxophone. So he was the working person's president. Because that was the image he wanted to get out. Even though he was highly educated and was very sophisticated, this was the impression that he wanted to give out. George W. Bush during the entire Iraq war would always come out in military jackets, would always be photographed in front of soldiers. His mission accomplished speech was very symbolically done on an aircraft carrier. Because this was a symbol of, so America has more aircraft carriers than the rest of the world put together. So there's a lot of symbolism, there's a lot of meaning in everything that he did in this war. Where these photographs were, how his photographs looked, what he was wearing. All of these were symbols to show what America was about. Because even though it was not really about a lot of these things. Okay. So this is perhaps not very readable. But anyway, so symbolism derives primarily from rhetoric. Now, rhetoric is often used as something that stands for emptiness, that you are being rhetorical because you don't want an answer. But honestly, symbolism and use of symbols and political marketing were built around a rhetoric of an idea. This is something that's actually very common in India because no one really stands for policies. Until very recently, none of the elections were about what this person said they would do. It was about the rhetoric that they employed. The Congress was about everyone, the BJP was about Hinduism. That was the rhetoric, that was basically what the elections were about. So, there is an announcement in the case reading about where Alan Miliband, who was the UK Minister for Labour, has this entire article which says, so he's introduced a new team in the NHS for modernization. They will be consisting of people who are not part of the traditional Whitehall bureaucracy, who will be leading this modernization drive. They will be people who are intellectuals and thought leaders in their own processes. Basically, he's saying he's announced a committee, right? This is what the entire press release was about. He's formed a committee, nothing more, nothing less. But he's created an enemy by saying that these people will be able to go against the traditional bureaucracy at Whitehall. Because he's showing that these guys are part of the modernization drive that they have, that these people are people who are out there on the on the cutting edge of thought, of thought leadership on this issue. But he's really just forming a committee. Another example that we thought was really important was Julius Caesar by Shakespeare. If you think about it, Brutus said everything correctly, right? Brutus was very, very fact of matter when he said why Julius Caesar had to be killed. Mark Antony just provided the context for those facts. At no point so this is why the speech is famous, right? Because Brutus is an honorable man, but he changes the context. It's about symbolism. It's about how you show those facts. It's about showing people a narrative that they can believe. Barack Obama, till 2008, was probably the most left-field presidential candidate that has ever been in American politics. And that's what his campaign slogan signifies. He said, "Yes, we can." Yes, we can what? What was it about? He started talking about how he was going to change Washington's bureaucracy and how he was going to bring in fresh air into the stuffy rooms of Capitol Hill, etc. But it became a clarion call for struggle against the system. Yes, we can becomes applied not just to politics, but to everything else. He became basically the challenger. He became the underdog in every movie that you see. He became the Cinderella man. The 1999 UK budget, for example, another case talks a lot about the 1997 to 2002 the UK Labour government, because they were really the masters of this, of spinning news, of making sure that it was presented the right way. Like I mentioned about Alan Miliband. So again, the 1999 UK budget has a section which is titled "Building a Better Society." Regardless of what the actual points in there are, if you oppose any of them, you are now someone who doesn't want a better society. Benjamin Disraeli said there are three kinds of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. And this was again used very effectively by the same Labour government in order to present facts that they wanted would show them in a better light. They said, for example, that we've reduced the number of people who had to wait for transplant surgeries by 15 months down to 1%. What they didn't say was that the average wait time had increased as a whole. Finally, मुझे माँ गंगा ने बुलाया है, अच्छे दिन आएंगे. Right? This is Narendra. How is he going to do it? What are the steps he's going to take? All after the air, अच्छे दिन आएंगे. Which leads us to the logical conclusion of V for Vendetta, where especially if any of you have seen the movie, where he talks for the 3 minutes about on TV, where he says, this is how the government is really playing us. They used the same way, they used a terrorist attack which the government themselves, while they were not a part, had engineered, and they used that as a symbol to derive authoritarianism. It's almost an Orwellian endgame of use of symbolism in political marketing. But as we've seen, the movie simply used the Guy Fawkes mask because he was someone who had tried to blow up the parliament. And this in itself is again very interesting, because this mask was then taken up, as you all know, by Anonymous. And while they've had multiple number of high-profile activities before, what really I think most of us remember is their response to Julian Assange's arrest. How they brought down PayPal, how they initiated an entire attack on Visa and MasterCard. Because they were saying that, you cannot do this. Under freedom of information, under the guise of democracy, you started becoming a totalitarian state. And this is something that is now becoming a worldwide movement. There has been a significant understanding of how we are being manipulated, or how we are being told lies, half-truths, in order to lead us away from what we really want to what we think we want. So the Labour government eventually issued sort of almost an apology for saying that, we're sorry about how much they've been using. When 4 days after Osama bin Laden was killed, Barack Obama laid a wreath at Ground Zero, but he didn't make a speech there. If you think about it, that's the perfect time to sort of come up and have this huge speech, because it shows you as the victor, as you are the defender of America. But he didn't do it because he knew that it was going, and this did happen. When after he went to Ground Zero, he went to the fire station which had lost, where 15 firefighters had lost their lives during 9/11, and he made a speech there. And the first thing he was asked is, why are you making a speech here? Are you doing it because you want to announce your re-election? Yeah.
Okay, so before I move into the managerial panel, I think it is imperative that I issue a disclaimer first, because our parallel is very unusual. So it is not managerial, or in a very conventional sense of managerial. So our parallel is religion. So because we have chosen religion because we have this emergence of billionaire babas today. So it might be so that some of one of the billionaire babas actually takes one of you to be their brand manager or their asset manager. Or who knows? You may one day decide to be one billionaire baba. So the way it has emerged, and politics, if you think about it, it is quite important to our lives. But religion is, I think, much more important, much more historical in the sense it has been there around for forever. So what we have done is we have tried to draw some parallels with the article there and in the true sense of the religion that is around us. So religion, what I have devices, there could be two kinds of religious practices as such. So there are those priests who worship God, and you go with your prasad and they worship God for you. And there are those gurus now that have come up who themselves have become the object of worship. So they have become God in the sense of everything. They perform miracles. They spin these stories of success over science. And it is quite easy for people to believe in something more tangible, something more real, like a real person, than to believe in an idol. Then religion itself has turned into a very big business. Actually, it has become a consumable commodity. There are TV channels, online content. You have Siddhi Vinayak going 24/7, and this is a very interesting concept if you think about it. There are now price tags to absolution also. So there are those VIP lines. You can just pay a lakh of rupees and you are just in the front of the line. All your sins are absolved and so on and so forth. And religion, I think, the best use of rhetoric you can actually see in religion. So there is a lot of preaching involved in religion is preaching. So epithets, invocations, people, you do this, you do that, this will happen. Prayers and names, then this is quite important. Religion, draws on your very basic instincts of fear and guilt. Dante's vision of 7 hells and whatever the
7 circles of hell. 7 circles of hell.
जन्नत वगैरह जिहाद के बाद क्या होता है
heaven and hell.
Yeah, whatever. So there is this very dark and a very rosy picture of hell and heaven drawn, and you stop living in this life to go to some life unknown. Then you spin. Okay, so narration of God's deeds miracles, science, not science, so miracles and diverting the water, Moses, Christ, or all the eulogies of God. And what on the extremely negative sides, you have seen a lot of cases, Asaram Babu, or in rape cases by holy men, so it is like the opposites of this. But this can happen, people are so brainwashed, this can happen. It does happen. And politics and religion, wherever they meet, I think this is the most potent, most powerful joining that can ever be. So we know that caste-based politics is the truth of India. From a very learned friend of mine, he had this opinion that in the recent elections, most of the BJP's success in UP and Bihar, it can be attributed purely to caste-based politics. And it happens, right? So then there are these unending conflicts. You have Israel, Iran, Iraq, Arab. Everybody is fighting on the pretext of religion. Mindless conversions, it has happened in 14th century, 15th century, 20th century, whenever you take the time. Religion-based states and ecclesiastical codes. So it was like Aristotle and Socrates talking about religion ruling the people. Then the underlying truth, the convenient truth here is these things are, religion is a very powerful tool you can use to actuate people against something. So there was this quote, I don't know about by whom. So all the wars are started for land and pride, and they end with women and for what? So, anyway, I hope you get the sense. So forgiveness, 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 but you kill one of the people in that religion, whichever the religion be, and it just goes here. So the framework that we have devised, it is called the convenience principle. So before telling you what it is, I will tell you what it is not. So it is closely related to bounded rationality, to rationalization, to truth, but I mean it has its differences. So bounded rationality, I hope you know that given the circumstances, given the knowledge that you have, you make a decision. But it is assumed that it has to be rational. But convenience principle says it doesn't have to be rational either. So that is the difference. Rationalization in a sense comes afterwards. So you take a decision and then you rationalize. But convenience principle says you can take a rationalize before and take a decision. And okay, so I have a very nice example for this convenience and truth. Yesterday on my Facebook post there was this picture and a caption on it. So there was this man lying on the ground. The caption said that in a relationship there are 6 people. You, who you think you are, and who you think the other person is, and then the other person who they think they are, and then who they think you are. And all of these people will coexist, and the truth and the way you perceive that relationship is you pick 2 people out of these 6 based on your convenience, and that is how the relationship goes. Okay. So now we are going to apply this convenience principle in political marketing. So what convenience principle says is every activity that we do, it is purely out of convenience. It is the easiest thing to do, so we do it. So the symbolic acts, मुझे माँ गंगा ने बुलाया है और ये तो सब scam है. All these things, they are very easy to institute in your brains. It is very easy for people to communicate it to other people, and it is very easy to interpret. And we all know about all the symbolic threats that India has made to Pakistan about all the wars, but nothing happens. And it seems something is happening. So then rhetoric. Okay, so rhetoric again. This scam app, people just connect to it and this is just picked up from the article itself. A good story anytime beats logic and reason. So Lyotard talked about these narratives and meta-narratives, science as a narrative, religion as a narrative, anything. Even if you are a good storyteller, you just, you cease to believe in reason. Okay, so I just quickly go through it. Policy presentation. So this is again picked from the article. So they say that 50% of the graduate people in Britain shall go to universities. Why 50%? So it is a very easy to remember fact. 50% people will go to universities. Then passing on these firefighting measures. You do something. Inflation is rising. RBI does something, and the government takes all the credit. Then vague results, whatever, NREGA or RTI or whatever, they are just presented as policy outcomes. So in the recent elections, Congress failed utterly with this RTI and women empowerment. They just kept on repeating, and it failed. And nobody knew what RTI was, what women empowerment was as a tangible outcome. Again, BJP succeeded with this Gujarat model, and again nobody knew what Gujarat model is, not even Modi. And then there is a lot of control and perception management. Then you present a unified front, and if you are powerful, media is practically in your hands, so that is quite easy for you. Okay, so now we apply this convenience principle in religion. So those who believe, they believe in this higher power, and what it is what it gives you is a easy way to offload your guilt to something unknown, but it is the benign being who will take all your sins and take it upon themselves. And then it is quite useful in any Freudian will tell you civilization is our biggest curse. So So, but I mean, it is quite, religion has been a cornerstone of any civilization, law and order. Then, this is what I was talking about, the suspension of disbelief. So, if somebody tells you that there are these galaxies and stars in heavens, you will believe them. But if somebody tells you the bench is recently painted, you have to touch it. So, I mean, that is, or when you go to a Salman Khan movie, it is the precise thing that you do. You keep your brains aside and just enjoy it. So, then again, this is a Freudian philosophy. So, convenient in suppressing instincts, religion helps you do that. Or when you have accomplished those, you go to this confession chamber and offload it. So, it is quite convenient. And the problem ultimately with symbolism, the previous framework is, God is infallible. I hope everybody agrees to that. And so, God is only benevolent, he is devoid of vengeance and whatever, but these holy men, the gurus, they are not. They do what mortals do, they are prone to error of judgments and judgment and so on and so forth. So what it leads to is disenchantment of people after, they become private to this game. They know that, this is the symbolic thing happening. So they become private to this game and then they get disillusioned with it. So how does this principle help you? You can always find a niche even within religion. You sell happiness, you sell the art of living, you sell health, so this is one way to circumvent that problem. And the other way is you create these trusts and boards on Gurdwara committee or the Mandir or the Muslim, so, and you keep a convenient distance so that, even when you fall, the empire doesn't fall. So, that you keep your money. So I think that is